Alright, so here's how you do question number 1. The ratio of salamanders to frogs was 5 to 7. If there were 20 salamanders, how many frogs were there? Well, let's write that down. So salamanders, or short for S, to frogs, or short for F, is 5 to 7. And we have to equal this to there are 20 salamanders, and we want to find out how many frogs were there. So this is somewhat how our question looks. Now, how do we solve this? Well, once again, there are two methods, cross multiplying and scaling. Well, for this, I want to use scaling because I feel like it would be simpler, right? And you gotta remember, this is a part-to-part question. This isn't a part-to-whole. Alright, now that we have everything out of the way, let's start. How many times can you fit 5 into 20? Well, that's 4. If you multiply 4 with 5, you get to 20. And we simply just multiply 4 with 7 as well. And that would mean that there are 28 frogs, right? And our ratio would look something like 20 to 28, something like that. Let's move on to question number 2. If 3 sacks of concrete will make 12 square feet of sidewalk, predict how many sacks of concrete are needed to make 40 square feet of sidewalk. So let's look at this. Concrete to sidewalk, so to S. So for every 3 sacks, we are getting 12 square feet of concrete. And we want 40. We have 40 feet of sidewalk, and we just want to find out what the concrete is. Once again, this is a part-to-part question. And for this one, I don't think we should use scaling. I feel like it's easier if we use cross multiplying. So first, 3 times 40. So we can just write that down. 3 times 40 is equal to C 12. Alright. Alright. So 3 times 40 is 120. And that's equal to C 12, right? And now we simply divide by 12 on either side. This one gets crossed out, and we are left with 10. So it would require 10 sacks of concrete to make 40 square feet of sidewalk. So our ratio will look something like this, 10 to 40. Or we can also just break this down and we can write 1 over 4, which is our simplest ratio. Let's move on to question number 3. In a class, there are 10 males and 15 females. What is the ratio of males to females in simplest form? So, how do we do this? We have 10 males and we have 15 females. So, M over F, right? It's the male to female ratio. What we want to do is we want to find the biggest number that is divisible by both of these values. So the biggest number that I can currently think of is 5, right? So basically now we have to divide 5 by both of our numbers. So 10 divided by 5, or accidentally with a percentage sign, 10 divided by 5 is equal to 2, and 15 divided by 5 is equal to 3. So the simplest ratio is 2 to 3. Now let's move on to question number 4. A classroom has a total of 30 students. There are 20 males. What is the ratio of males to females? So we know that the total is 30, right? And there we have 20 males. We can simply just subtract our total by the amount of males we have to get the amount of females. So by the way, this would look something like M to total. I wouldn't say M to F, right? It would be, sorry, to total, right? So let's begin. 30 subtracted by 20 will give us the amount of females, which is 10, right? So our ratio would look like 10 over 20. But this is also, once again, not the simplest form. We know that both of these values are divisible by 10. And if we divide both of these by 10, we will get the new ratio of 1 to 2. So let's move on to question number 5. In a class, the ratio of males to females is 4 to 5. If there are 36 total students, how many females are there in the class? Now this is a part to whole question. Now we're just going to pick one group for now. Let's assume we're picking males. We know that the ratio between males to total numbers of students is 4 to 9, because the total number would be 4 plus 5, right? So it's going to be 4 to 9. And we know that the total is 36 students. And we want to find out how many males and females. But for now, we just want to find out how many males are there, right? 3 males in total. Right? For this, I'll use scaling once again, because we know that 3 times 9 is 36, which means we just have to simply multiply 4 by 3, which is 12. 4 by 3, which is 12, right? So the amount of males in that class would be 12, right? And in order to find the females now, we simply have to subtract it from the whole. So the amount of males, let me write that down, amount of males, right? And we simply have to subtract that by 36. So 36 subtracted by 12, and the answer to this is 24. So there would be 24 females. And once again, if you want to make a ratio, it would look like 12 to 24, which is also just 1 over 2, right? But that's not what the question is asking. Let's move on to question number 6. Jonah has 30 marbles, 18 of which are red and 12 of which are blue. Jane has 20 marbles, all of them either red or blue. If the ratio of the red marbles to the blue marbles is the same for both Jonna and Jane, then Jonna has how many more blue marbles than Jane? So let's break this question down, right? We know that Jonna has 30 marbles, right? And we know that the ratio is from R to B is 18 18 to 12. And we know that Jane has the same ratio, but he has 20 marbles, so he has a different total. This means that this question is a part to whole question. So let's look at one of the marbles. Let's look at the red marbles, right? We know that the ratio between red marbles and whole is 18 to 30, right? And we know that Jane has 20 marbles, right? So his total is 20, and what we want to find out is how many red marbles are there. So let's do that. Once again, let's use cross multiply. So that's gonna look something like 18 times 20 is equal to R times 30, right? And 18 times 20 is 360, and that's equal to R. And what we want to do is we want to divide that by 30. So 30 cross, and 30. And that would mean that there are 12 red marbles. Jane has 12 red marbles. But that's not what it's asking. It's asking for the amount of blue marbles, right? So all we have to do is subtract 12 from the total. So 20 subtracted by 12, which will give us the amount of blue marbles, because this is the amount of red marbles subtracted by the total, and it'll give us the amount of blue marbles, right? Which is 8. So we know that Jonna has 12 blue marbles and Jane has 8 blue marbles. If we simply subtract this, we're going to get our answer of how many more blue marbles does Jonna have than Jane, which is 4. Let's move on to the final question. In a bag of red and green sweets, the ratio of red sweets to green sweets is 3 to 4. If the bag contains 120 green sweets, how many red sweets are there? Alright, so once again, we know that this is a part-to-part question. So let's begin. We know that the ratio of red to green is 3 to 4. And we know that the amount of green sweets is 120. And we want to find out how many red sweets there are, right? So we can use scaling for this or cross multiplication. But I feel like scaling is good for this one, because we know that 4 times 3 is 12. So that means 4 times 30 is 120. So if you multiply this by 30, it becomes 120. And so we simply multiply 3 by 30. So 3 times 3 is 9, and then you just add a 0, which is 90. So we know that there are 90 red sweets. And the ratio would look like 90 over 120, or in simplified forms, it would look like 3 over 4. But yeah, it's not asking us for that. Anyways, that's all for today's video, and goodbye.